The first time I knew something was wrong, I was standing under the back porch of the Holloway Ranch with mud on my boots and my wedding dress folded in a white box in the truck. I was not meant to hear voices through those porch boards, but I did. "Keep her calm until Sunday," a man said above me, low and rough. "After the papers are signed, it won't matter what she thinks." I froze so hard I could hear my own pulse in my ears. Then another voice answered, smooth, easy, familiar. My fiancé. Nate. "She doesn't know anything," he said. "She trusts me." The world did not fall apart all at once. It split with a thin, quiet crack. I should have walked out right then. I should have climbed those steps, looked him in the face, and made him explain what papers he meant. What he meant by keep her calm. But I stayed where I was, crouched in the cold dark under the porch like a fool, my fingers digging into damp earth. Then I heard the third voice. "You should tell her now." Caleb, Nate's older brother. Even in 3 words, he sounded like himself. Flat, hard, like he kept every feeling locked behind his teeth. A chair scraped above me. Nate laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You lost the right to protect her when you kept hanging around her like a stray dog." My breath caught. I had felt Caleb's eyes on me for months. At family dinners, at church, at the feed store. Never warm. Never welcoming. Just watchful. It always made my skin tighten. I thought he judged me. The town girl buying into ranch life. The outsider too blind to see I did not belong. Then Caleb said, quieter now, "I'm telling you one last time. Don't do this." Something heavy hit the porch rail. A fist, maybe. The boards above me shook. I did not wait to hear more. I backed out from under the porch, my heart slamming so hard it made my vision blur, and hurried along the side of the house before anyone could come around. The sky had gone dark too early, swollen with storm clouds rolling over the mountains. Wind pushed through the cottonwoods and bent the brittle grass flat. By the time I reached my truck, my hands were shaking. Nate had asked me to come early to the ranch for Sunday planning. Seating charts, guest cabins, the kind of sweet little pre-wedding details people smile about later. Now all I could hear was his voice. "She trusts me." I threw the dress box onto the passenger seat and climbed in. My fingers slipped on the key twice before the engine turned, when gravel spat under my tires as I pulled away from the house. I made it to the lower gate before a horse stepped into the road. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded sideways and stopped so close I saw the animal's frightened eyes roll white. "Easy!" a voice called sharply through the wind. Caleb came out of the dark holding the horse's reins in one gloved hand. He looked like he had been carved from the weather itself. Broad shoulders, old brown coat, jaw tight, eyes unreadable beneath the brim of his hat. He took one look at me through the windshield and knew. He tied the horse to the fence post and came to my window. I did not roll it down. He bent slightly, knocking once on the glass. "Lena." I stared straight ahead. His mouth moved. "Open the door." I shook my head. The wind rocked the truck. Sleet began to tick against the hood. He leaned closer, his voice harder now. "You can't drive east. The creek road washes out in weather like this." I looked at him then. Really looked. There was mud on his boots, rain on his collar, and something in his face I had never seen before. Fear. Not for himself, for me. I cracked the window half an inch. "Did you know?" He went still. That was answer enough. My chest turned hot with fury. Did you know what he was doing? Lena, did you know? His jaw worked once. Not all of it. I laughed, sharp and ugly. That's not much better. He took a slow breath like he was trying not to say the wrong thing. This storm's moving fast. Be angry later. I almost hated him for saying it like that. Like my life breaking open was an item to schedule. Move, I said. I'm leaving. He looked toward the road, then back at me. You won't make the pass. I'll take my chances. No. He said it low, but it landed like stone. Something in me snapped. I shoved the door open hard enough to hit his leg and climbed out into the sleet. You do not get to tell me what to do, not after standing there and saying nothing while your brother— A crack split the air. Not thunder. Wood. We both turned. One of the old cottonwoods by the creek bent hard in the wind and broke clean through the middle. The top half slammed across the road 30 yards ahead, sending branches and slush everywhere. I stopped talking. Caleb did not say I told you so. He only stepped closer, voice tight now. Feed shed, now. I'm not hiding with you. Then stand here and freeze while the road closes. The sleet thickened, stinging my face. Behind us, the ranch house lights glowed faint and far. Too far. And I did not want to go back there. Not to Nate. Not with those words still cutting through me. Caleb took my overnight bag from the truck bed before I could stop him and started toward the north field. I should have driven back to the house. I should have screamed at Nate in front of whoever was there. I should have refused Caleb on principle. Instead, I followed him into the wind. The feed shed sat beyond the horse pens, half hidden by blowing sleet and tall fencing. It was bigger than I expected, with a side room for tack and a narrow loft overhead. Caleb shoved the door open with his shoulder, and warm animal smell rolled out. Hay, leather, dust, old wood. He lit a lantern from a shelf, and the room came alive in amber light. A workbench, feed bins, coils of rope, 2 saddle blankets hanging by the wall. The storm thudded against the tin roof so hard it sounded like fists. Caleb dropped my bag near the bench. You can stay here till it passes. I wrapped my arms around myself, wet and shaking in places I did not want him to notice. And where will you be? Here. No. His eyes lifted to mine. No? You don't get to trap me in a room and call it safety. Something flashed across his face. Anger, maybe. Hurt, maybe. It vanished fast. This isn't about what I get, he said. It's about the fact that Nate's already looking for you, and if you go back before you know the truth, he'll talk you into doubting what you heard. That hit because it felt possible. I hated that it felt possible. I took a step closer. Then tell me now. His shoulders tensed. The rainwater ran off the edge of his coat and darkened the dirt floor. Tell me what papers he meant, I said. Tell me why you warned him. Tell me why everybody in this family acts like I should be grateful just to be let in the door. He looked away first, toward the lantern, toward the horses shifting in the next stall. Anywhere but me. That scared me more than if he had lied. When he finally spoke, his voice came out rough. Sunday isn't only your wedding day. The room seemed to narrow around us. I stared at him. What does that mean? He dragged a hand over his mouth, like he was already regretting starting. It means, he said, your name is on something Nate never told you about. Before I could answer, before I could force the next word out of my throat, headlights swept across the cracks in the shed wall. A truck was coming through the field. Caleb blew out a breath and grabbed the lantern. "Upstairs," he said. My pulse jumped. "Why?" His eyes cut to the door, then back to me. "Because if that's my brother," he said, "you need to decide right now whether you want him to find you before you know what he's been using you for." I did not move at first. The truck lights slid through the wall cracks again, slow and pale, cutting across feed sacks and saddle leather. Outside, gravel snapped under tires, then stopped. Caleb's voice dropped even lower. "Lena." There was no time left to argue, no space left to be proud. I grabbed the hem of my coat and climbed the ladder to the loft with stiff, cold hands. The wood shook under my boots. At the top, I crouched behind stacked hay bales that smelled dry and sweet, with my heart beating so hard I thought the whole shed could hear it. Below me, Caleb lifted a grain scoop and began dragging it across the floor like he had been working the whole time. The truck door slammed outside. A second later, the shed door opened and wind drove sleet inside in a sharp hiss. Nate stepped in, smiling. That almost hurt worse than if he had come in angry. He looked handsome the way he always did when he wanted people calm. Dark coat, easy posture, hair damp from weather. That warm face that had made half the town trust him before he finished a sentence. For one crazy second, I understood exactly how I had gotten here, how I had mistaken charm for safety. "She here?" he asked. Caleb did not look up. "Why would she be?" Nate closed the door behind him. "Oh, because her truck's at the lower gate." I held my breath until my ribs hurt. Caleb kept his hands busy with the feed bins. "Maybe she turned around." Nate gave a quiet laugh. "You were always a bad liar." He walked farther in. I could see the top of his head from where I hid, the straight set of his shoulders, the boots I had once knelt to wipe mud from after a county fair, because I thought that kind of care meant something. "I know she hurt us," Nate said. The words slid through me like ice water. Caleb finally looked at him. "Then maybe stop acting like you can fix it with that voice of yours." Nate's jaw tightened. "I am trying to stop this from becoming a disaster." "A disaster for who?" "You want the list?" Nate snapped, then lowered his voice again. "The investors. The land transfer. Our father's last agreement. The whole damn ranch sitting on debt nobody here can cover if this falls apart before the signing." My fingers dug into the hay bale. Land transfer. Signing. I suddenly felt sick. Caleb did not move. "You should have told her." Nate laughed once, short and sharp, and said what? "Hey, sweetheart. The guest cottages your aunt left you are the missing piece that keeps this place from being sold off. So let's rush the wedding before you realize you have leverage?" My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might fall through the loft. The guest cottages. My Aunt June's land. She had left me 6 riverfront acres on the edge of Hollow Creek. 3 old rental cabins, a little chapel ruin, and a deed I had barely touched because grieving her had felt bigger than paperwork. But Nate had offered to help me sort it after the wedding. He said we would make decisions together. Together. Below me, Caleb's face went flat with disgust. "You hear yourself?" Nate spread his hands. "I love her." The lie made my eyes burn. "Maybe you do," Caleb said, "but not enough." Nate stepped closer, and I saw a flash of something ugly under the calm. "Don't do that. Don't turn this into me being the villain when you've been standing in the dark, wanting her for months." Silence hit the room like a hard slap. My breath caught. Caleb did not deny it. He only said, very quietly, "This was never about what I wanted." Nate looked up toward the loft then. Not quite at me, but close enough that my whole body locked. She isn't stupid, he said. If you've filled her head with anything, I'll know. Caleb set down the scoop. Oh, get out! Not until I find her. Caleb took one step forward. It was small, barely anything. But I had grown up around men enough to know when one of them had crossed from talking to something else. The horses in the next stall shifted and snorted. The storm hammered the roof. Then Nate smiled again. And that smile was the most frightening thing I had ever seen on him, because now I knew how little it meant. If she runs now, he said, the bank still comes. Dad still loses the north pasture. Half the hands are gone by spring. You think she wants that on her conscience? I shut my eyes. There it was, the true shape of it. Not love, pressure, not a future, a trap dressed like one. Caleb's voice turned cold enough to cut. Don't you put that on her. Nate stared at him for one long second, and then nodded like he was settling something in his head. Fine. He turned and headed for the door. At the threshold, he looked back. When she comes to you crying, he said, you tell her the whole thing. Tell her why Dad pushed this match in the first place. Tell her who let it get this far. The door slammed behind him. Wind rushed through the cracks, then faded under the steady roar of sleet. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then my body did what it had been begging to do since the porch. I climbed down the ladder too fast, my foot slipping on the second rung. Caleb caught my arm before I hit the floor. I jerked away from him like his touch burned. You knew, I said. My voice came out thin, wrong, like it belonged to someone younger and much easier to break. He let his hand fall. Not all of it, he said again. Oh, stop saying that. My throat tightened. You knew enough. He opened his mouth. I stepped back. How long? A muscle moved in his jaw. Since your aunt died. I laughed, then covered my mouth because it came out half broken. Oh my God. Lena, don't. I shook my head hard. Don't use my name like you have any right. His face changed then. Not anger, something worse. He looked like he agreed with me. I pressed both hands against my forehead and turned away, staring at the rough plank wall, because I needed something solid that was not him. My aunt trusted this family. She trusted your father. She trusted Nate. She trusted me to be careful, and I walked straight into this. You didn't know. I should have. The words burst out before I could stop them. I should have known why Nate kept pushing the date, and why every hard question about money somehow ended in a kiss or a joke or him saying we would handle it later. Why his father suddenly started treating me like I was already tied to the ranch by blood. Behind me, Caleb said, "This isn't your shame to carry." I whipped around. Then whose is it? He looked straight at me. Mine too. The honesty of that made me hate him even more for one terrible second, because it robbed me of the easy comfort of turning him into a simple enemy. What did your father do? I asked. Caleb's shoulders went rigid. He and Nate set it up after June got sick. They knew the bank wanted collateral. They knew your land connected to the creek access road. The moment it got folded into a marital trust, the ranch would look whole again on paper. A cold wave swept through me. They were using me to save the ranch. Yes. And you said nothing. His silence answered before his mouth did. I stepped back again. I could barely feel my fingers. Why? He looked at the floor once, then at me. Because the first time I tried to warn you, You looked at me like I was trying to ruin your life." I stared at him. "When?" I asked. He huffed a bitter breath. "At the harvest dance. You asked why I kept acting like I hated seeing you with Nate." I remembered. Lanterns in the trees, fiddle music, Nate spinning me under yellow light, while Caleb stood by the fence with his hat low and his face shut tight. I had gone up to him full of heat and embarrassment and asked what his problem was, and he had said, in that same clipped voice, "You don't know this family." I thought it was cruelty, as maybe it had been a warning too badly given. "Then why didn't you say it plain?" I asked. His eyes darkened. "Because if I accused my own brother without proof, you would have run straight to him. And once you were married, it would have been harder to untangle. I was trying to get documents first, something real, something he couldn't charm his way around." I hated that part of me believed him. I hated it because belief made room for all the other things I had kept pushed down every time Caleb stood too close in a barn aisle, or opened a gate before I reached it, or looked at me with a kind of pained restraint I did not want to name. Outside, a new sound rose through the storm. Not thunder. Water. Fast and ugly. Caleb's head turned toward the back wall. Creek's up." He crossed to the small side window and wiped it with his sleeve. His whole body went still. "What?" he swore under his breath. I moved beside him and looked out. The north field was turning black with water. Not deep yet, but moving fast, filling low ground, cutting across the track that led back to the main road. "If it keeps rising," he said, "this shed won't hold." Fear cleared my thoughts in one brutal sweep. "What do we do?" "Ranger station." "Where?" "Half a mile east. Higher ground." I let out a disbelieving sound. "In that?" He turned to me fully for the first time since Nate left. "Listen to me. In 20 minutes, maybe less, the creek cuts the whole field in two. We either move now, or we spend the night on a roof." I looked at the door, then back at him. I did not trust him, not fully, maybe not even halfway, but I trusted rising water. He grabbed a canvas coat from a peg and held it out. "Take this. Yours is soaked." "I don't want your coat." "Take the damn coat." That snapped something practical awake in me. I yanked it from his hand and pulled it on. It smelled like cedar, leather, and cold wind, like him. He packed fast. Lantern, rope, a first aid tin, 2 blankets, something wrapped in oilcloth. Then he opened the side locker and pulled out a revolver. I stared. He checked the chamber without looking at me. "Coyotes. Sometimes worse." "Worse than coyotes?" His glance flicked to me, grim. "Tonight? Maybe my brother." The words landed heavy between us. We stepped into the storm together. The world outside had turned savage. Sleet knifed sideways. Mud sucked at my boots. Yet the horse pens rattled in the wind like loose bones. Caleb kept one hand at the small of my back as we moved along the fence line. Not gentle, not intimate. Just there, firm and guiding when the ground pitched under my feet. We crossed the first field bent nearly double. At the creek bend, the water had already burst over the bank. It tore through the grass in dark, rushing sheets, carrying branches, fence pieces, and once, horrifyingly, a child's plastic wagon from somewhere upstream. "We can still make the footbridge," Caleb shouted. We ran. By the time we reached it, the bridge was shaking. It was little more than planks and side rails stretched across a narrow cut in the creek. But now the creek was no longer narrow. It slammed under us wild and brown, chewing at the supports. I'm not crossing that, I yelled. Oh, you are if you want dry ground. He went first, testing each plank with his weight. Wind shoved him sideways once. He caught the rail and kept moving. At the middle, he turned and held out a hand. I stood at the edge, every bad thought crashing through me at once. Nate's voice, the porch, the lie, Caleb's silence, my own stupid hope, the water below. Lena! I looked up. There was no force in his face now, no hardness, only urgency and something raw enough to strip me of argument. Trust me, he said. Maybe it was cruel that those were the words. Maybe it was exactly right. I stepped onto the bridge. The first plank groaned, the second shifted. By the third, I was shaking so hard I could barely breathe. Water roared below me. Wind shoved at my coat like hands trying to pull me off. Keep your eyes on me, Caleb said. I did, and I moved one step, then another. Halfway across, a crack split under my left boot. The plank dropped. I screamed as my leg plunged through to the knee. The bridge lurched. I grabbed for the rail and missed. Then Caleb had me. He caught my forearm with both hands and slammed back against the side rope, taking my full weight as the creak snapped at the broken board beneath us. Don't look down, he said through clenched teeth. Too late. I had looked. The water below was a dark mouth. I could not feel my foot. I could not feel anything except his grip and the cold rush of panic climbing my throat. My boots stuck. I know. He braced, one arm locking around the rail, the other around me. When I count 3, pull hard. The bridge shuddered again. Somewhere behind the storm, I heard an engine, and headlights cut through the sleet from the far bank. A truck. Nate's truck. Caleb saw it too. His face changed with a speed that chilled me. 1, he said. The engine roared closer. 2. The truck door slammed. A shape moved toward the bridge through the sleet. Caleb's fingers tightened on my arm. And just before he said 3, Nate's voice tore across the storm. Lena, don't let him take you any farther. He hasn't told you what he did. My whole body locked. Not because I believed Nate, because some part of me still wanted to. That was the cruelest thing about being lied to by someone you loved. Even after the lie was standing in front of you with its teeth out, your heart still searched for the old face inside it. 3, Caleb said. He yanked hard. I pulled with him, and then my leg came free so suddenly I slammed into his chest. The broken plank dropped into the creek and vanished at once. Caleb wrapped one arm around my waist and half dragged, half carried me the rest of the way over the bridge. Behind us, Nate hit the near side. Lena, he shouted, you need to hear me. Caleb pushed me toward the bank. Run to the pines. I stumbled 2 steps, then turned back. He said you didn't tell me what you did. For 1 second, Caleb looked furious. Not at me, but at the timing, the danger, all of it. Rain and sleet streaked down his face. His hat was gone. His hair was plastered dark against his forehead. Yes, he said. I should have told you sooner. I was wrong. That's not what he meant, and you know it. The bridge gave a violent groan under Nate's boots. Nate stopped in the middle, and one hand on the side rope, his coat whipping in the wind. Ask him why your aunt changed her will the week before she died. My chest tightened. I looked at Caleb. Something old and painful moved through his face. Not surprise, not confusion, recognition. Caleb. He let out one breath hard through his nose. the kind of breath a man takes right before stepping into a bullet. "I was there," he said. Nate laughed bitterly over the storm. "Tell her the rest." The creek crashed below us. The bridge shivered again. Caleb's voice came low. "Your aunt had a fall in the west pasture last spring. Horse spooked. I found her. I got her home. After that, I started helping her with the cabins, repairs, books, the roof over Unit 2. I stared at him. My aunt had mentioned a Holloway boy once, but she was already sick then. While drifting in and out of details, I had not known it was him. "She knew Dad was circling," Caleb said. "She knew Nate kept offering to handle things for her. She didn't trust it." The storm seemed to narrow around his words. "One night," he went on, "she asked me what I thought would happen to the land after she was gone. I told her the truth, that Dad would try to fold it into the ranch any way he could. Marriage, debt pressure, some legal trick. She asked if there was anyone she could trust to keep that from happening. I felt the answer before he said it. You." He nodded once. "She changed the will so the land stayed with you alone. No joint transfer without your written consent, witnessed outside the family. Look, she put extra protections in because she thought you were too soft-hearted to see a trap if it came dressed like love." My eyes burned so suddenly I had to blink hard. That sounded exactly like Aunt June, tender and blunt in the same breath. Nate shouted over the creek, "And tell her who signed as witness!" Caleb looked at him with a kind of tired hatred that told me this wound was older than me. "I did," he said. My stomach flipped. "You signed it?" "Yes." Nate spread his arms wide, triumphant even now. "There. You hear that? He's been in this from the start. He didn't protect you because he's noble. He protected you because he wanted control of the land away from me." "That's not true," Caleb said. "How would she know?" Nate fired back. "You lurk around her for months. You poison her against me. You hide things. While you decide what truth she can handle and when. Sounds a lot like control to me." The words hit where they hurt because there was enough truth in one corner of them to make the lie feel possible. Caleb had hidden things. He had decided for me. He had kept me in the dark. My voice came out shaking. "Why didn't you tell me when she died?" His eyes found mine and held there, steady even now. "Because I promised her I wouldn't drag you into a fight until I had proof they were moving. I thought if I watched long enough, I could stop it before it reached you." "And did you?" I asked. That landed. I saw it. "No," he said. No defense, no excuse, just no. The honesty in it hurt more than a polished answer would have. The bridge cracked again. All three of us looked down as one support rope snapped loose and whipped into the current. "Off!" Caleb shouted at Nate. But Nate only took 2 more steps forward, stubbornness and panic mixing into something reckless. "Lena, come with me now. We can still fix this." Fix. Like I was a spilled drink, a torn paper, an inconvenience. I saw him clearly then in a way I never had before. Not the smile or the polished voice, not the practiced hands and the gentle jokes, just the shape of a man who thought love meant access, thought trust meant ownership, thought if he sounded calm enough, I would doubt my own eyes. Something inside me went cold and clean. "There is no we," I said. He stared at me like he did not understand the language. I took 1 step toward the bridge, but not to go to him, only so he could hear me above the storm. "You were going to marry me before telling me my land was the thing holding your family together." His mouth opened. I was trying to protect. Don't. My voice cracked sharp through the sleet. Do not use that word again. The wind hit us hard. The bridge lurched. Nate's face changed then. The charm slipped. For a second there was only anger, raw and ugly. You think you're above this because you inherited a few cabins? You have no idea what it takes to keep a place like this alive. No, I said, but I know what it takes to kill trust. That was when the bridge gave way. It happened all at once. A deep snapping sound. The middle planks folding, side ropes screaming under strain. Nate! I shouted. He grabbed for the rail as the center dropped beneath him. One leg slid through. His body slammed sideways, while he was still on the bridge, but barely. Caleb moved before thought. He shoved the rope bundle into my hands. Anchor it to that pine. Then he ran back toward the bank. Every instinct in me screamed that this was madness. The bridge was dying. The creek wanted everything. But Caleb was already on his knees at the edge, tying off one end of the rope around his waist. I can't hold both of you, I yelled. You won't have to, just tie it. My hands shook so badly I could barely thread the rope around the pine trunk. I looped it once, twice, then yanked it hard and prayed the knot held. Caleb crawled onto what was left of the bridge. Don't, Nate gasped. It'll go. Then stop fighting it. Nate looked up at him, rain running over his face. For the first time all night, he looked less like a liar and more like a terrified boy. But maybe there had always been some of that inside him. Maybe fear had rotted into greed over the years. Caleb stretched flat, distributing his weight. Give me your hand. Nate stared at him in disbelief. After all this? Caleb's voice turned savage. I'm still your brother. Take my hand. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. Nate reached. The bridge dropped another inch. Caleb caught his wrist. For one suspended second, all three of us held still, rope tight, water raging, wind screaming through the pines. Then something downstream smashed into the broken supports, a log or part of a fence I could not tell, and the remaining planks tore free. Caleb and Nate both went into the creek. I screamed. The rope snapped taut around Caleb's waist so hard it jerked him sideways instead of under. But Nate was not tied to anything, and he disappeared into the black rush at once. Caleb came up choking, one arm thrashing toward the bank, the other reaching after where Nate had vanished. Hold! He shouted. I threw my weight backward against the rope. Bark tore my palms raw. Mud slid under my boots. The line burned and sang and nearly pulled me straight into the creek after them. Then, 50 feet down, Nate surfaced once. He hit a half-flooded willow and grabbed a branch. Caleb saw him too. There! I cried. Caleb fought the current with brutal strokes, using the rope to angle himself downstream. Twice I thought he would go under for good. Twice he came back. He reached the willow just as Nate's grip began to slip. I could not hear what they said over the water. Maybe nothing. Maybe at a point like that, there was nothing left worth saying. With the rope braced around my body now, I leaned back and hauled while Caleb wrapped an arm around Nate's chest, inch by inch, slip by slip, until at last they hit the shallow bank below the pine line and collapsed in mud and sleet like wreckage washed ashore. I ran. By the time I reached them, Nate was coughing river water onto the grass. Caleb was on one knee beside him, one hand pressed to his own ribs, blood mixing with rain at his temple. For a second, the three of us just breathed. Then Nate lifted his head and looked at me. There was no charm left. No easy voice, just shame and fury and something close to pleading. Lena, he rasped. I know how this looks." A laugh burst out of me, wild and disbelieving. "How this looks," I said. "You still think this is about how it looks?" He flinched, and I stood over him shaking with cold and heartbreak, and more anger than I knew one body could hold. "You asked me to trust you. You asked me to build a life with you. And all that time you were counting what I could bring to your family, like I was a piece of equipment. That's not all you were." The answer came too fast, too defensive, like even now he was bargaining. I wiped sleet from my face with numb fingers. That sentence should never have a second half. His eyes closed. When he opened them again, something in him seemed smaller, not better, just stripped. "I did love you," he said quietly, "in the way I knew how." The words should have mattered once. Now they only made me tired. "That was the problem," I said. Behind me, Caleb pushed himself upright with visible pain. "We need to move. A ranger station's close." Nate gave a bitter sound. "You still taking orders from him?" I turned on him so fast the words died in his mouth. "No," I said. "I'm making one." He stared up at me, breathing hard. "The wedding is over. Whatever deal your father thought he was building with my life is over. And when this storm breaks, I'm going straight to a lawyer with every name involved." He looked away first. That mattered more than I expected. We got Nate to the ranger station because leaving him would have made us monsters, and none of this was going to turn me into one. The station was old and half abandoned, but dry enough. Caleb splinted Nate's wrist with a broken drawer slat. I cleaned the cut on Caleb's head with shaking hands and did not comment when he winced, but never pulled away. Near dawn, the storm finally weakened, while the world outside turned pale blue and silver. The kind of cold morning that looks holy from a distance and brutal up close. A county truck reached us just after sunrise. Everything after that moved fast. Sheriff, statements. Nate's father arriving red-faced and loud until he saw how much I already knew. His noise collapsed into silence when I said the words fraud and coercion in front of 2 deputies and a witness from the county office who knew my aunt's deed protections better than he expected anyone would. The wedding never happened. The town ate the story in bites. Feed store whispers, church glances, pity from some, judgment from others, relief from a few who had always distrusted too much polish in a man. Nate left Hollow Creek by the end of the month. His father lost the north pasture before spring, then the back equipment lot after that. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Just piece by piece, the way weak things finally admit they are weak. I did not feel joy watching it. Only clarity. I kept my aunt's land. Not because I won. Not because anyone saved me. Because it was mine. And because the first honest thing I did in a long time was stop handing my choices to men who sounded certain. As for Caleb, for a while we spoke only when we had to. Lawyer meetings, repair estimates, a stack of boxes from my aunt's cabins he helped carry to the porch without being asked. He was careful with me now, more careful than before. Like he understood that wanting to be near me was no longer enough reason to be near me. I respected that. I also noticed things I had not let myself notice before. The way he fixed my broken gate and left before I came outside. The way he never once asked me to forgive him ahead of my own time. The way guilt lived in him quietly, not like a performance, but like weather he expected to carry. Summer came slow to the valley. Grass pushed back through the mud. The creek dropped to a clear green ribbon again. I reopened 2 of my aunt's cabins for fishing season with help from a retired carpenter and exactly 0 Holloway men. Then one evening in late June, I found Caleb on the edge of the old chapel ruin on my property, replacing a rotted board on the porch rail. He stepped back at once when he saw me. "I can go." I looked at the new rail, then at him. "Did I ask you to?" His mouth shifted, almost a smile. "No." The light was soft and gold. Swallows dipped over the grass. But for a long moment, neither of us moved. Then I asked the question that had lived under my ribs for months. "When did you start caring about me?" He did not pretend not to understand. "At first," he said, "the day you came out here in city boots and still climbed the pasture fence by yourself because you didn't want anyone thinking you were delicate." A surprised laugh escaped me. He glanced down, then back up. "Later, it got worse." "Worse?" His mouth twitched again. Harder to hide. There it was, his version of tenderness. Awkward, plain, more honest than anything polished ever could be. I stepped closer. "You hurt me." "I know." "You should have trusted me with the truth." "I know." I stopped in front of him, close enough to see the faint scar near his temple where the creek had thrown him against rock. "And I still don't know if I can forgive all of it." He nodded once. "I know that too." No defense. No rush. No reaching for me before I was ready. That was when I understood what felt different. Nate always tried to move my feelings somewhere useful for him. Caleb stood still inside them, even when they cut him. The evening wind moved through the grass around us. The old chapel bell frame creaked once overhead, empty and weathered. "I read Aunt June's last letter again," I said quietly. His eyes lifted. "She wrote that real love does not rush to possess. It stays long enough to be proven." Something changed in his face then. Not hope exactly. Something more careful than that. Something that knew hope could be broken if it moved too quickly. I reached out and touched the porch rail he had fixed. Then, after a long breath, I touched his hand. He went very still. "I'm not giving you a promise," I said. "I'm not asking for one. I'm giving you a chance." That was the moment he finally let himself feel it. Not big, not dramatic. Just one rough breath leaving his chest like he had been holding it since winter. He turned his hand under mine and held it. Warm, careful, real. Months later, when the first cold came back to the valley, we stood on the porch of Cabin 2 watching frost silver the pasture. No wedding music, no audience, no performance. Just us. He brought coffee in 2 chipped mugs. I leaned against his shoulder. The creek moved quietly below the hill, no longer a threat. Just water going where it needed to go. "You still hate these mountains in winter?" he asked. I smiled into the steam. "No." He looked down at me. "What changed?" I thought about the porch boards, the storm, the bridge, my aunt's letter, the ruin of one life and the hard, patient beginning of another. Then I answered the only true way I could. "I learned the difference," I said, "between being chosen and being used." His fingers tightened around mine. Below us, the cabins stood warm and lit against the coming dark. And for the first time since everything broke, I did not feel like I was standing at the edge of loss. I felt like I was home.